First of all, I really appreciate the effort taken by the college to have marked this day. This is one day which is generally forgotten by everyone, and generally it is not observed like the other days. And I'm happy that your college had made effort to get this organized. Let me come straight away to the Zero Discrimination Day. What actually is discrimination? And I'm happy that you have brought out beautifully in the context of HIV and AIDS. That is something which we generally don't talk about and we are generally not aware. Discrimination is something which happens every day when it comes to HIV, and why it happens is something which we need to all know. First of all, let us understand what discrimination is. Discrimination is something that is unjust or prejudice treatment that we met out to certain categories of people in the society. Something what is really not just. Something which is really preconceived notion. Prejudice is something preconceived notion that we generally have of people to whom we never met also, or with whom we never had actual even real life experiences. So we are grown up, or we are made to believe that there are certain categories of people, certain types of people, which are where we always connect morality issues, and then we choose to discriminate. Now, if we see the HIV is almost more than almost 40-year-old epidemic. Today we are having COVID epidemic. Some 40 years ago, same way everybody was getting afraid. And it's actually Corona is a different type of virus. And HIV is a different type of virus. The way it spreads is completely different. Mostly today, HIV transmission is limited to human behavior, wherein it is mostly connected with unsafe sexual practices. And whatever is connected with sex is always, a taboo for everyone. So which is why, we always try to discriminate. Now, regarding HIV, there are many groups where HIV is concentrated, where the HIV prevalence or the HIV epidemic is very high, and they are more vulnerable to. So there are four groups where which we generally talk about in the context of HIV, which are generally discriminated. One is the sex workers. In Goa, we had something called as red light area some years back in 2014. Before it was demolished. Otherwise, sex work happens in a very unorganized fashion. Earlier, it was in an organized manner, in a particular limited to a particular area. But when we talk about this section of society, sex workers, we choose to discriminate them. There are many ways how we look at. Not everybody who get into sex work gets into sex work because of money, or they want. Some are forced to get into sex work. So this is the population which we are talking. And don't think that such people don't exist in Goa. We always think that because we don't hear of them, we think that they don't exist in our society. So that's one of the group which we generally discriminate, and we generally look down upon them. And mind you, I have met so many of them, after practicing years of sex work, they don't want to get into, they don't want to get into the any types of work, because all their life they have practiced sex work. The other group, which is very, again, not known, is men having sex with men. Now, why I say, because this is specific reference to the LGBT community, which we generally refer. Now, all gays, all homosexual, whatever we call them, not necessarily get into sexual activity, because sexual unsafe sex is the root of HIV transmission. So that's why we have categorized some community members, we call them men having sex with men, and the transgender community. These two groups again are vulnerable to HIV, and this is again, these are the against group which are generally we don't don't relate or don't agree with, because a lot of our upbringing prevents us from accepting them. Now, connecting with that, Kimberly in introductory words mentioned about gender, sex. These are the two words which we generally use in our day-to-day language. But all of you should know that gender and sex are not the same. The sex is a biological construct which basically refers to the anatomy of our body. Gender is a social construct. I may be born as male, but deep inside what I feel, what I experience is I am not a male. That's called gender expression, and sometimes it comes out. So when a person experiences those kind of feelings, despite being a male, they get feelings of of being inside a female. So these again are categorized as transgenders, where and there is another small section where it's called intersex children or intersex individuals, where the anatomy of people doesn't fit into our binary notion of male and female. So these are the these are the few groups which are again vulnerable, and these are the groups which are discriminated. The third group is people who inject drugs. As you know, Goa has been grappling with the drug problem for quite a long time, and we have a large section of young people as young as sometimes 18, 19 getting into injecting drug abuse. So what happens in this space is that generally there is a tendency to share the needles. So no one takes drug alone sitting, and it's not recommended also, because then there are chances of overdose happening, and there should be someone to help. In that reference, people injecting drugs usually sit in a group and do injecting. And if one have either HIV or bloodborne infection, then it transmits to everyone. So there are programs which Human Touch also runs in South Goa. We work with injecting drug users in the whole South Goa district. So this is another group which is again discriminated in relation to HIV. And the fourth group is again migrants, the migrant community. You must be those who are very active on social media. Again, must be seeing a lot of hatred directed towards migrants. That's one group which is again stigmatized, discriminated, and not treated as our own. Sometimes even we have various facilities, we take various services from them, and yet we speak against them. So this is something which also need to be discussed in the context, because again migrant groups are very vulnerable to HIV. There is another small section of group, we call them truck drivers. So not every truck driver is at a risk of acquiring HIV, particularly those truck drivers who are long distance. Sometimes they are driving for months together, they are away from their family for months together. So these are the primary groups which are again discriminated in the context of HIV. Now let us come to some few stray incidents in our state of Goa, which sometimes have been very shameful. Goa has around 15, so far detected around 17,000 people living with HIV detected or tested positive in the state of Goa. That's almost equal to more than 1% of our population. But we don't know where they are right now, because only few of them are connected to treatment. But having said that, there is a huge discrimination when it comes to HIV. Some of you must have been very young. In 2014, we had an incident in a South Goa school in a place called Rivana, where around 14 children, 23 children were removed out of the school just because they were HIV positive. Uh, Going back to the early days of infection, early days of HIV, we had in 1992 or 1993 the first case of HIV in Goa, Dominic D'Souza. When he was detected positive, he was chained and he was arrested. So that is the kind of incidents which are happening in Goa, and still we do see incident of discrimination among the children, among the positive people in the state of Goa. Now, why this happened is something most of my experience is that it's connected to morality. So, the moment, even today, when it comes to HIV testing, I'm sure if I come to your college and offer you HIV testing, uh, whoever comes first to do HIV test, half of you will stare at him or her, or half of you must be already thinking that this person must have engaged in something immoral or something, must have done multiple sexual encounter with. These are the thoughts which generally come to everybody's mind, because we always connect HIV to something, something wrong, something immoral. That person must have done something wrong, so that's why he or she must have got HIV. So this is the general notion which everyone has, and this is something which we need to shed off today. Today, as we all listen to us, listen to these experiences, it's high time that we understand. At least this young generation should lead a change. We shouldn't be the generation that should be stigmatizing. We shouldn't be that generation which should be talking about differences. Today, even in the midst of COVID, all of you must have experienced the hard COVID times, especially among the migrant communities. How they had to, some of them walking for days together with their baggage, trying to go home, or trying to make their survival here. So these are some few stray thoughts which I thought I should share. I would want most of you to interact with us, because I feel that your experiences or your questions will help us. What is the thought process running in your mind, and I will come back to you if I have time. I don't know how much time I have taken, but let my colleague speak regarding the experiences which she has been. My colleague has been closely working with children and adolescents living with HIV. So uh, I would want her to speak first, and then whatever is missing, then we'll take it forward.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Kimberly for the introduction, and also the counseling cell of Navalem College for giving me this opportunity to share my experience as a mental health professional while dealing with people living with HIV. So today I'll be talking about the psychological impact that stigma and discrimination has on people living with HIV. But before getting into that, I would first like to say, just touch up on what actually causes stigma. Yeah. So as we see it, fear is the ultimate root that motivates individuals to inherit stigma and discrimination against people living with HIV. And why does this happen? Why is the fear there? This is because there are a lot of misconceptions and myths that still exist in society today which surround the HIV illness. And even today, people are, very much unaware of the advances in science and, what actually it means to live with HIV in today's world. So there are a lot of negative attitudes and beliefs that surround HIV, and it is these negative value judgments that give rise to stigma. And like Peter sir said, it is mostly directed towards certain groups, like those who are belonging to the female sex workers, men having sex with men, people who inject drugs, and migrant workers. And also, HIV is highly associated with morality or infidelity. Yeah? So, as some of the studies have shown that when people living with HIV are isolated from the community, it has a negative impact on their quality of life. And this is where the level of rejection that is shown against this community, it outweighs the level of acceptance for them. Now, while stigma can lead to a lack of interest towards prevention of AIDS, HIV and AIDS, we see that although this happens, studies have shown that when communities show acceptance and compassion towards these people, it encourages them to engage in protective and precautionary sexual behavior and also to be more open about their HIV status. Many of the researchers have stated that there is denial of employment which affects the working life of an individual. And employers, after knowing that the person is HIV positive, they expel them from work, even if there is, there isn't any reason. They do not give any reason, even if they're not sick, and they're quite capable of finishing the tasks that are kept in hand. And most of the employees, they suffer from prejudice and attitudes that are mostly shown by their supervisors and their colleagues in the form of social isolation. That is, there would be lesser interaction, and no colleagues would be willing to talk freely to them. They ridicule them. They will taunt them. There will be a use of sarcastic language and other discriminatory practices like keeping them in one corner of the room or giving them tasks that would not involve much interaction with other people. And because of all these reasons, people living with HIV often refrain from disclosing their HIV status. And it also happens that they do not disclose their status to their family and their relatives, with a fear that in a similar way they will be treated differentially, and they would have these distancing reactions that they would want to avoid from their family members. And we also see that the percentage of stigma which is higher in women living with HIV rather than men living with HIV. And why is this? So basically, HIV is seen as a punishment for immoral or bad behavior. And even when the woman has not engaged in any said behavior, they are accused of doing so, even if it includes them contracting the HIV virus from their husband. And such behaviors, as we see, are generally always stigmatized in society, and there's always this pre-existing moral belief that exists. And this also happens to be one of the reasons that they have a fear of being judged and they do not want to disclose their status. Other than that, we see that because there is a lot of stigmatizing beliefs in and around this illness, people do not get and do not go into testing for HIV. Like Peter sir has said, when we go to colleges and different institutions, when we do community-based testing, we see that a lot of members of the society do not willingly come, or they hesitate to get themselves tested because they will be judged for doing some engaging in some bad behavior or in some sexual activity. And because of this, they will refrain, and it will come to an extent where they are exposed to opportunistic infections, and they reach an advanced stage of the illness, which otherwise could have been prevented with timely testing and antiretroviral therapy. Now, coming to the psychological impact that stigma and discrimination has, first we see that there's a lot of stress among these people. So the extent to which a person is stigmatized, they are denied of their basic necessities, and the negative implications that discrimination has, like, shame, low self-esteem, denial, these are all prone to chronic stress. And we see that this stress eventually has harmful implications on the mental as well as the physical health of the individual. Now, stress can also lead to a constant fear of being stigmatized, even if they do not, they have not been stigmatized now. They always have this worry that somewhere in the future someone might discriminate against them, and also there is no social support. There is a lack of social support, and not being able to confide in another person to lighten their burden. It also exaggerates the mental health issues. Now, coming to the second one, we see depression. So, due to the lack of awareness, we see that society commonly associates HIV illness with death. And when people living with HIV hear about this, they lose hope. They think that the world will come to an end and that there is no future for them. And sometimes it so happens that they already may have lost a family member through HIV, and when they hear such attitudes from different people, it only adds to their grief and bereavement that they are already going through. And because of all these reasons, we see that a lot of these adolescents that we deal with nowadays, they develop a pessimistic thinking about themselves, and how they view others, and also how they view the world in general. Then there is a loss of job, feelings of isolation, there is lack of social support, denial of services, shame, etc. These lead to depressive symptoms among people living with HIV. And some of the depressive symptoms that we commonly see are pervasive sadness, suicidal ideation, low self-esteem, and also internalized blame and guilt. Next, we have anxiety. Besides stress and depression, anxiety is the most common that we see among people living with HIV. And anxiety mostly is developed when partners refrain, from telling their partners about their status, because there is always this fear that they will get rejected or stigmatized. And social exclusion or exclusion by their immediate social support, which may be a family member or a friend. This is one of the major reasons why people living with HIV, they step back from disclosing their status. And anxiety level, among this population is worsened when there is the fear of the unknown. They don't know what will happen. They are, always worried and always anticipate what will happen in the future. Will they be healthy? Will they come across some opportunistic infections? Will they be unemployed? How are their children going to have a good future? So these are all the reasons that culminate to anxiety. And we also see that, like I said before, there are a lot of negative effects of stigma which show up at the workplace. And denial of job is one of the major reasons why we see that people living with HIV are anxious. They do not know when they will face employment and even unemployment, sorry. And even if they do face unemployment, they always are worried, how am I going to be able to sustain my life? How am I going to get access to basic needs due to the financial instability? How am I going to feed my children? So these are all the questions that, mostly prevail in their mind. Now, sharing one of the experiences that we had a mother of one of our beneficiaries who was made to do an HIV test. She wasn't told that it was an HIV test. They just told that they would be doing a blood test. And when they found out, that she was positive, they just removed her from the job. And she was the sole member, the sole earning member in the family. So without giving any reason, even when she was, good in health and she was quite capable of doing the work, they just removed her out of the work. And anxiety in this circumstance, it increased. Since she was the sole member, how is she going to pay for the education of her children? How is she going to, pay for the expenditures of the other household chores? So these are some of the reasons that led to anxiety in this women. Now, also we recently, just a year back, we saw there was denial of education. So we see that stigma also prevails in educational institutions among principals and teachers when they are not, aware. There was this boy who was tested positive after he kept falling sick due to high fever and things like that. So when he was tested positive, he was not told anything. He was just said that, you are not well, so you do not come for school for this month. They said that you can study from home and come and answer the exams, but they never got back to the child. So in this way, the child lost 1 year of his education. And when we got to know about the whole case, we intervened, and that is when we took the child and we put him in another care institution, and we helped him, to get admissions in an institute. The next problem or issue that we see is vulnerability to different infections and other health-related issues. So when stigma surrounds HIV, it contributes to poor patient outcomes. And why does this happen? This happens because we see that discrimination is also practiced by health workers. Even till today, we find that there are nurses and other health staff who treat people living with HIV differentially. And I have come across 2-3 clients who have reported this to me. For example, just last year we had a woman living with HIV who had to undergo a treatment for her kidney failure. And when she was admitted in the hospital, she wasn't given a proper bed. She was, just kept on a table, and she was just kept in the corridor where people, walk through. And when they asked her, why is she not being given a proper bed, they always said that, the beds are full and we cannot give because we have to just discharge a patient first. Only then we will be able to give her a bed. But even for 3 days, she was still there on that same bed. She had back sores because she couldn't sleep properly, and it increased her health issues. We also have seen that when people living with HIV, when they go to get their ART treatment, their medications, they used to be taunted for having HIV, and every time they come, they would be the health staff would say something or the other that would just bring down the self-respect of the person. And it reached to such an extent, such an embarrassment, where they lost self-worth, and they started experiencing guilt and shame. It reached to such an extent they actually stopped taking medications for 2 years. And when that happened, it only worsened the health condition, because when you stop taking medicines, the virus in the body, it starts multiplying and progressing. And when it worsened, that is when they went back, to restart their medicines. And we've also had one of our adolescents coming and telling me that, when we go to the ART center, the health staff would not even hold her book properly. They just hold it at the tip, which is it's very insulting actually. And even if they had to sign something or write something, they would have a different pen. The health staff would not touch the same pen as the client. So these are some of the scenes or the cases that we have seen. We also see that when these clients go to get treatment, like maybe to a dentist or any other department, in their case paper it is always written that the patient is seropositive, which means they are HIV positive, and this is actually necessary so that the doctor can take the required precautions while engaging with these clients. But then also what happens is when the doctor sees these, the comment which is there saying that they are seropositive, they end up keeping their, case paper at the very bottom. So they will finish all the other patients which are there before them. Even if they came first or, in the first five, they will finish all the other patients and then attend to people, who have HIV. And we see that because of such instances, a lot of them try to avoid, going through to avail treatments, to and they resort to not availing the treatment and other health services, and this only in turn compromises their physical as well as mental health. Now, coming to the next issue that we see is quality of life. There is something known as self-stigma. So self-stigma is when an individual who already belongs to a stigmatized group, they start internalizing the negative attitudes that surround them, and they start accepting them as valid. And when there is self-stigma, it only breaks down their confidence to seek healthcare services. And we see that self-stigma leads to a sense of negative judgment about themselves, and it gives rise to feelings of shame, worthlessness, blame, so on and so forth. Now, persistent stigma is therefore, associated with negative quality of life, and many researchers have also, indicated this. Even when we did an assessment on our adolescents living with HIV, when we did a quality of life assessment, we saw that they had a lot of negative scores in the areas of social, health, personal security, and environment. Yeah. So this is some of the areas that are affected when it comes to quality of life of the individual. Next, we have social isolation and loneliness. Within the community, we see that people living with HIV are discriminated with the fear that, even if they are just there, their presence can, transmit HIV. So this was something that happened years back, like Peter said, going back to 2014. The students were expelled from the school, and why did this happen? Because the parents protested that there was a risk for their wards getting HIV just with the presence of the other children. And apart from school, we see that, we had this one case where in the neighborhood there was one person who got to know that the person was tested positive for HIV, and for 1 month she started putting banners on the door of the person who's having HIV. She started putting banners on the door saying they are HIV positive, stay away from them. And this happened for like almost a month, and it was like a harassment, emotional abuse that these people had to go through. The mother and the daughter, they had to go through this kind of torture, and it was very sad. Like when just imagine the plight of a family when they just wake up in the morning and they see a label on their door saying they are HIV positive. So it was a very sad scenario. So because of such reasons, we see that to avoid such circumstances, they avoid disclosing their status because they have a fear that even by mistake, if the society comes to know, they will be, stigmatized and discriminated. So they tend to self-isolate themselves, and they keep away from anyone who isn't aware that they are positive. Um, Even if we keep aside the society, we observe that people living with HIV, they are discriminated by their own family members. They are either made to move out of the house, or they are made to find shelter elsewhere, or they are asked to live separately under the same roof. They will be given different utensils to cook for them, a different couch to sit, or a different bed to sleep, or a separate set of cutlery just to have their food. So this is the type of discrimination that even exists in the household. And among our beneficiaries, we have seen that some who stay in the same household, the other members are not aware about their status, and whatever they have to do in hiding. Maybe if it is keeping their medical records or taking their ART medicines, everything needs to be done in secrecy, and they are okay with doing so rather than getting discriminated by their family members. In some cases, we have also seen that family members not allow social interaction in general when the person is tested positive, because of the fear that they will bring shame on the family if other people get to know about their status. And we've seen that a lot of our adolescents also have a fear, of making friends with those who are negative. Apart from having a small circle of friends who or peers who are from the same community. And we see that this limits their friend circle, and they're not able to spend the years as a normal teen or a young person would. So taking into all of this into consideration, we see that a lot of them also engage in substance use and develop substance use disorders. This mostly happens because of self-medication. They try to medicate themselves to wade through the pain and the distress that they have in life because of stigma and discrimination. And consumption of substances, again, it clashes with the ART medicines intake and worsens the health. And we see that this is a way of using negative coping mechanisms to deal with the issues that surround being stigmatized. So we see that the impact of stigma on mental health can adversely affect their HIV treatment management. And if treatment gets hindered, it acts as a barrier to prevent the transmission of HIV. So a lot of researches and evidences have shown that when we eliminate stigma and discrimination, the result of having higher acceptance of people living with HIV into the society is present. And also, if we try to improve the attitude of healthcare workers like ourselves, it improves care for people living with HIV, and also it has a wider societal benefit as health professionals are mostly seen as role models. So keeping all this in mind, I would just like to summarize by saying, we need to eradicate stigma and discrimination. And how are we going to do this? As students, first we can talk about HIV. The language that we use is very important. We cannot say HIV or AIDS patient. It should be person or people living with HIV. Or even when it comes to, when we say prostitute, the term that needs to be used is a sex worker. Or when we say the person has become, HIV infected, rather than that, we need to say that the person has contracted or acquired HIV. And we see that if we use negative language in our conversation, it will only reinforce stigma and discrimination and not eradicate it. And our generation is, highly active on social media. So apart from the entertainment, all of that, it is also our responsibility to spread awareness regarding the concepts that are still a taboo in society. And we need to educate ourselves with proper information and educate others, spread awareness among our peers, our families, and then communities at large. And this will only help us to address fear and change the attitudes that society portrays towards people living with HIV. And thirdly and last, we should empower people living with HIV. We need to first understand the human rights of people living with HIV, and if we observe any violations that they face when they are not able to defend for themselves, we need to advocate and stand for their rights and do whatever is required to empower them. So yeah, I come to an end. Thank you.
I think Apple covered most of the points, and I like to add the fear factor a little bit before I open the event for questions. Apple mentioned about fear. So that is something happens because we don't have good knowledge or education. There are few developments which have happened in HIV space which we need to take note of. One is that the HIV medicine, there is no cure for HIV, but there are medicines which suppress the virus in the body of a person living with HIV to such an extent that it can, when you test a person living with HIV, it can be undetectable. The virus, the medicine works on the body to such a level that virus become undetectable. So that is the time, even if the person has unprotected sex, the virus doesn't transmit. So there is no question of, fear and having that notion that people will living with HIV will die soon, or they have few years to live. That was a thing of the past, and we should be no longer looking at people living with HIV in this through this lens. So that is a strong message which should go in everybody's mind, that it's okay to be living with people. It's okay to be, people don't even want to eat something which is prepared when they know that the person is who has prepared the food is living with HIV. But when it comes to restaurant and things like that, we hardly bother who has cooked the food, whether the cook is HIV positive. We don't bother about that. But when we really know a person, then we avoid eating. So this is the fear. Let's remove that fear out of our mind, out of our mindset, and only then we'll be able to remove that, end the discrimination. With this, I hand over to Kimberly for a question, and maybe if any students have a question. Question on PrEP and PrEP. These are two different things. There is something called pre-exposure prophylaxis and post-exposure prophylaxis. So pre-exposure is basically, this is basically a drug which is come in the market or in the HIV prevention programs, where when you have a discordant couple in the sense one in one of partner is HIV positive. So this is a pill which is taken before and after sexual encounter, so that HIV doesn't transmit. It is almost equivalent to a prevention method like condom. So in the place of condom, PrEP is used. So it's basically a tablet which is taken. Now, there is any additional information I want to give you. if people are wanting to have PrEP, it doesn't protect you from sexually transmitted infection. PrEP is only in connection with transmission of virus. Now, post-exposure prophylaxis PrEP, it is basically something which is consumed after you are exposed to HIV virus. For example, doctors, when you have an urgent case like in a surgery, accident case or thing, you won't go to do an HIV test, first. There is a urgent stage, and if you later on come to know that the patient was HIV positive, then that the doctor has to take some medicine that is that is the same medicine which is taken by regular people, so that the virus within 72 hours, the doctor has to take that, whenever any in either case, even in the case of sexual abuse, even in the case of sexual assault, this particular test is administered so that within 72 hours PrEP is administered, so that in unknown cases where the accused in a sexual assault case, we don't know whether person was positive or not positive. So that's the query. I hope I have answered. What has the solution? What has the solution done to radiculum? So medical personnel as such, we public don't need to educate them. They themselves come from medical fraternity. They know each and everything. They know better than us, the whole virology about HIV virus. So as such, we don't need to educate them. But there is something which has come lately. Government, after debating around 14 years, had brought out HIV/AIDS Act. So any discrimination, we talked about a lot of discrimination. So if you discriminate henceforth, the act has come in force since 2017. If you report any discrimination case, or if you are discriminated, then you can approach and launch a complaint against that person, and there are various punishment which are quoted in the act. That there are clauses which are saying certain types of punishment, and there are things like that. So in that perspective, human rights of people living with HIV are now protected. But what happens in Goa? The Goa government has still not notified in the official gazette of the government of Goa the HIV/AIDS Act. Although the act is a central act and in force, here in Goa, people cannot complain and approach the authorities. Of course, they can complain, but under the act, whatever justice is given, or whatever provisions are there for people living with HIV in the state of Goa, because of the act not notified, things are a little bit difficult. But our organization is following up with the department. Last we got an update that it is with law department, and the law department has promised soon that it will be notified in the gazette. Yeah, so I hope I have answered the queries, the two queries which have come. Any more queries?
Apple did mention that we don't refer to them as positive people or things like that. We call them we have a new way of referring to people like this. We call them people with HIV, because HIV or AIDS does not define them. So
That,
how can our students help assist this movement basically of having a world with zero discrimination? I know that awareness is one step there, and we are already there. What are the other ways we can help this movement of having a world with zero discriminations?
okay, so that's a quite a nice question, and it has a lot of things to do. Discrimination depends upon where, like first I said, language. There is a document which has brought out by UNAIDS terminologies, how to address people. So that is something which has changed over the years. Like the moment we have our language fine tuned, in connection with human rights, and by looking at a person, that's going to make a huge difference, huge difference. That is one way. Speaking about it, today not today, I don't know whether you have sometimes go into the website of the Goa State AIDS Control Society. We have around, I think, at least 30 cases within the age of, below the age of 24 years, 24. And all of you, I believe, should be around that age. So, there is only one way which we needs to control HIV is to sexual safe sex. Even that message has not gone through. So that means that we are very shy of talking about something. We are shy of talking about sex. We are shy of talking about so many things which we generally engage in. So it's time that we talk about it. Talk about it. Because that only then people will be able. Today people still consider, when I go around in schools and colleges, how long is the lifespan? Now this question is very general, it comes often. So much so that we have known that HIV has become a manageable disease, but still that caution. So that means that knowledge is not there. So I think most of you now today, 63 people are participating. We have got knowledge. Go and speak around it. Go and speak to people. That will make a lot of difference, because despite this is one epidemic, despite 40 years. Forget about the vaccine part. Everybody questions us about vaccine. Why COVID got a vaccine in a year and HIV still has not got a vaccine? That is definitely not within my ambit to answer. But why we are not able to get zero discrimination? Why we are not able to get down to zero cases? Is something wrong? That we all know that there are only 4 reasons. Blood we have controlled. Needles we have controlled. Mother to child, there is no case in Goa since 2014. The past 7 years we don't have a single mother to. So only thing remains is sexual route. So why we are still getting young cases, within the young people. That means knowledge that we need to talk about. These are signs that we all need to talk about it. Yeah, and there is one more question which is question to both. Did you both get threatened or discriminated when people found that? Oh, so this, yeah, of course, when we work for people living with HIV, people think that we are also HIV positive, and they also see us. That happens, but not very much. I don't know whether Apple have a different experience, but definitely I've been in this space for quite a long time. We do address these issues. Apple, do you have Apple? Are you there around?
Yeah. So when I do tell people that I work with adolescents living with HIV, no, I haven't been threatened or discriminated, but I have been advised to be careful. And I think this is because of the lack of knowledge that the person has. And I have been given information which was inappropriate. So, whatever in my ability, I have tried to educate them and give them proper information. So yeah, that is my experience.
Yeah, and adding to that, because of this less knowledge or less, sometimes age, there are big messages which are very old, almost 20 years old messages still circulate, and then we uneducated still. So I think there is one message which generally circulate regarding one pineapple guy. That somebody ate one pineapple and then he was found positive, and then they found that pineapple seller was HIV positive. These are some fearful messages which go around. Somebody even circulate sometime message about that people keep needles in the theater. Be careful. These are only very old messages, but they only create fear. So don't circulate this type of messages. You people are best placed to, in this informative world where so much information is there. Don't forward such messages. Don't refer to these people like even transgenders and all, like we make so much fun of them. We use them in like very very loose language also. So these are people who are vulnerable. So let's start respecting people from all spaces, whether they are LGBT, that is the who, whether they prefer, what is their sexual preference, what is their other preference, that's not our thing to discuss. Let's be human first. Yeah, so I think that's I'm ending that we need to be human first, and with that everything will fall in place.